Hello and welcome to this week's episode of QTV. Wow, have we got a fantastic program coming up this evening.
First, we'll be chatting to the winner of the International Miss Leather competition, rugged, hedonistic femme girl Ang.
We continue our Glimpses into Asia series, taking a look at Pride Singapore style, where everyone dresses in pink and takes over the local park to form a huge pink dot.
HIV positive activist Nick Holas talks about the recently released book Growing Up Queer in Australia.
And we delve into the past to remember the Equal Love campaign that achieved the recently same-sex marriage law change.
Leather is part of my identity and part of how I live my life and the choices that I make and who I am. Leather is, it's a material, it's a skin, it's something that you can work with to make clothes and all different sorts of stuff. But leather is also a subculture. Identifying as leather is different to having a leather kink, although there's a lot of people that are in the leather subculture that love leather.
My favourite piece of leather is actually a leather pride flag that one of our local leathermen made for me to wear into the contest last year. So I drag that out on special occasions, and it always makes me smile to think that he had enough faith in me to make me that one-off piece to wear. Well, we know each other through the Melbourne leather community.
I refer to myself as switchy, which is how my energy goes on a day-to-day basis. So sometimes I'm feeling more dominant and sometimes I'm feeling more submissive, and I'm very comfortable in either of those spaces, and it's and it can ebb and flow with the situation that I'm in and the environment and the people and what's happening. So that's a cyborg woman. In the background is the leather flag, of course, and IMSL 18, which was the title that I held, and the harness that you can see going around here to each side and down. That's to reflect I'm not locked in a box of femininity. I'm a rugged femme, and I'm very comfortable in my boots as well as my stilettos. So that's the IMSL pin.
Men's leather has been a much bigger entity than women's leather. And so having the sash and having Ange with the sash has given women's leather a profile that it's not had in Melbourne previously.
Being sex positive and being open and being openly queer and open about the workshops that I teach and the events I go to and the photos, and you can't be IMSL without doing all of those things. Mum and Dad said, when I told them about running for IMSL, they said, we don't really understand what you're doing, but we know that there's a registration fee, so we're going to pay that for you. Whoa, that was a bit of a surprise. So, they're supportive. I don't know that my aunties and uncles and extended cousins and everybody else that's on my Facebook page, they certainly don't like my posts when I'm advertising that, I'm off to teach my fisting squirting workshop next weekend. I haven't got auntie and uncle going love heart and thumbs up. But if I put up a photo of my kids, then they do. They're still there. I grew up in Toowoomba, up in Queensland, which is about an hour and a half out of Brizzy. My most favourite memory from childhood is going to Grampy and Grandma's, and they used to live up at Redcliffe, up on the coast, in a permanent caravan park, and they were right out on the beach, and I used to go to sleep to the sound of the waves. I used to wander off. She said I'd turn around and you'd be gone, Angela. So that was one thing. I didn't have any fear, no fear of the water, no fear of people or anything else. I would just quite happy to do my own thing from very young. That's what Mum said. Within the DS, I perceive everybody within that relationship having equal power. different people will have different levels of authority. So we have had a friendship for a few years now, and there was a period of time where Pup was collared to me as my pup, and I was their handler.
And not only that during Nance's title run, I was actually a volunteer for him. So
every individual is a powerful entity within themselves. That's often visible within our community through visual cues. So if I was wearing a cuff, the cuff would be on my left. If this condom pocket here, it's worn on my left. If I am carrying a whip or a flogger attached to my body, it will be on my left. And my boy, who is my submissive, will wear a cuff on his right. We have equipment all over the walls and drawers. It's on shelving and literally hanging off the walls. And, there's whips hanging up outside. And so there's a lot of play spaces in different areas of the house that are often played in. Very, very queer. I am attracted to masculinity with a cunt. I love a butch, but I've had incredible scenes with feminine dykes and lesbians and queer folk that do not identify as the binary genders, gender fluid people and gender non-conforming people. If I could pick anything, it's masculinity and a cunt, but those aren't rules, they're suggestions. People are very yummy. Part of my journey into the leather community involved earning leathers. And so that was very much something that happened over a process of time. There's different signals where you can kind of tell sometimes that they indicate that somebody is highly respected. So one of those is the cover, the traditional Tom of Finland leather cap, which is referred to as a cover. And so people that have those have, generally speaking, been gifted them because they've earned them. Is some of the things that I've received or earned over the years, when I put them on, I put on history. I carry people's history with me. Something from somebody that's now passed away, like this. This comes with a huge, amazing story as well, and I was gifted it a few months ago. This is not my leather. This is with me now. It will go on. It gets to continue and protect somebody else from the cold. A belt that goes around you is like a hug from community. Everybody has a kink, at least one. Whether it's, eating sexy food and it just makes them feel good, that's a kink. So being able to verbalise, these are my kinks. This is what I feel like doing tonight. Hi, nice to meet you. I'm Girl Ange. What are you into? I think you're hot. I saw you over there playing with a whip, and I'm curious as to how that feels. And of course, my bedroom door, once it's shut, it's a dungeon.
Coming up now, one huge pink dot that is Singapore Pride.
A group of my secondary school classmates called me Bubble instead of my real name.
My mom said that I was immoral right after I told her that I broke up with my first girlfriend, and she told me that it will never be okay.
I was told by my youth pastor at the age of 14 that if I carried on with this lifestyle and I made these choices, I would burn in hell.
So I wrote down Chao Gua. It was a term that I was being called back in school, and teachers knew about it, but they don't know how to deal with it. 3778 actually hampers any form of support that queer youth can actually get in school.
It gives Singaporeans a reason to hate people like us and to shun us away from being who we want to be.
A lot of people don't fully understand the impact that 3778 has on the whole community. It is with 377A that people can't see these like positive portrayals of us anywhere else because it contradicts with the law. If you can't even see like positive role models of us, and then year in, year out, they ask a survey to people, what do you think of the LGBT community? Naturally, they're going to say, no, I'm against them.
My grandma will say, that I better fix my ways because the way that I am is a sin.
We've all been through the point of bullying, discrimination, where people just look at you and give this side eye. But when you're together, people can't really touch you or hurt you if it's just surround yourself with love.
Are we ready to have some fun tonight? Are we ready for some more good music? And are we ready to repeal 377A?
Okay, I know it's raining, but are we going anywhere? No, we're gonna stay put, right?
As allies, Beatrice, Preeti and I have had our chance to share, and we will continue demanding justice and do the work in the 364 days surrounding Pink Dot from here on out. But today I think it's more important for me to invite to the stage someone from the community who's both brown and queer and has been doing incredibly powerful work on the ground. Please help me welcome to the stage, Irie Aman.
Can I hear my queer brown folks in the audience today?
Growing up, it was hard to find a safe space, even within a safe space, because queer brown people are minorities within a minority. This is why, as a people, we must strive for bigger. That's what inclusivity does. It listens to people, acknowledges their experiences, makes space for them. We can always do more.
I was called many things. Less than a man, less than a woman, less than a human being. People tell you to just take it because protesting makes people uncomfortable. I stand here today speaking from years of pain, my own pain and those of others like me. People at the receiving end of threats and hurtful words. People who live in fear of being beaten up or raped just for being LGBTQIA+. This is our reality. But the silver lining is you. We found each other here, and we're taking back our right to be seen and heard as equals.
All we want is to be treated with respect and dignity. Our Prime Minister said that Section 377A does not inhibit us from living. That is not true. Because the discrimination that we face on a daily basis is born from Section 377A and the trickle-down effects on the policies that govern this country. Because of Section 377A, we continue to be marginalized and we lead incomplete lives. Because of Section 377A, we deal with discrimination every day. Please, Prime Minister Lee, lead us. Tear down this law.
Next, we'll hear from Nick Holas, who was interviewed on Joy 94's Saturday Magazine programme about growing up queer in Australia. And after that, we'll take a look at our recent marriage equality bill and the changes that's made in Australia.
I love books.
Who doesn't?
I read, not enough people.
True.
I read a book on average every 2 weeks. And, for me, biggest challenge is where do I put them? Where do I store? I only want hard copy. I don't want ebooks.
Oh, you can't do the ebook?
You can't do Kindle?
No.
There's something I'm in two minds about it because I love a full bookshelf. I love the physical book in my hand.
It's great insulation on a wall.
Oh, this week we need it, absolutely. But also there's something really useful about a Kindle in that I love that I can highlight. It's like I can highlight the section of a book that I'm drawn to if I need to remember a passage, and my Kindle remembers.
Take a photo of it.
It's not
Then
quite
you'll
the
never
same.
see it again. How many photos are in your phone? That's right.
I know.
Yeah.
Well, actually, it's National Love Your Bookshop Day.
Oh,
Nick.
beautiful.
If you were to recommend a book right now to the listeners, what would you recommend they go and buy today from a bookshop?
Oh, well, I would have to recommend Growing Up Queer in Australia, which launched just last night, which I have the privilege to be a part.
Recommend that?
Well, I have the good privilege of being in that collection of really extraordinary queer writers, authors, activists, rabble-rousers, etc. And it's all edited by my friend Benjamin Law, who is truly, I think, a national treasure.
So tell us about your contribution.
My contribution is a pretty personal essay that I wrote about an experience that I had growing up with my stepfather, which really framed the way that I have approached and thought about Australian masculinity. It was not a pleasant experience, and the writing of it has been a rather personal process that has led to some pretty big conversations with my family. But when I was invited to contribute to Growing Up Queer in Australia, it was an honour to be part of this. It's a fantastic series. I mean, Black Ink Books have done Growing Up Aboriginal in Australia, Growing Up Disabled, Growing Up African, and it's great that we now have the Queer Compendium. And I stopped and I thought I could write something about my HIV status. I've written about my HIV status for years now, but I've started to write more and more about I think my relationship as a queer man, as a queer person with masculinity, and how that's interacted with me at a family, personal level, but then also at a broader social level. And I think now is a really urgent time for us to be talking about the way that maleness and toxic masculinity has an impact on society.
I want to ask you, Nick, a subject that we're seeing coming up, it's coming up in the public domain is religious freedom, and how that might play out. We've got a Federal Attorney General, Christian Porter, who I have quite a great regard for. I think in a lot of ways, he does believe in the rule of law, but it's got to be good law. He's made some interesting comments about it. We haven't seen the legislation. We don't know what form it's going to take. It's going to be a bit of a battleground. What are your thoughts?
My thoughts.
Taking you off subject.
Yeah, no. We're all thinking about this a lot. If you're kind of scanning even just lightly the media, you have to think about this, because we've had these kind of flashpoints of this conversation now through the Israel Folau thing. My concern is that the process for religious freedom versus religious discrimination is that it's taken such a massive pivot after the election, in that this week the Prime Minister met with a bunch of interfaith leaders about this issue, but didn't meet with a single LGBTIQ person.
That was a faith-to-faith meeting.
Yeah.
Very good.
And those interfaith gatherings are really important, and I don't want to position every single faith organisation, interfaith person as being an enemy of the LGBTI community, because that's not how we achieve anything in this space. But we also do have to recognise that there are major players in the faith space who are antagonistic, if not oppositional, to queer existence and queer safety. So it was really troubling for me when I saw that in the lead up to, say, the Wentworth by-election, we had the Prime Minister making a lot of noise about religious discrimination in school and protecting kids, and not quite going as far to say protecting teachers, but protecting kids. And now it seems like, the miracle election, which provided absolutely no mandate to the Prime Minister, has been taken carte blanche as his ability to kind of wander down this pathway. And I think it's incredibly troubling.
Why do you think, Nick, that okay, it's easy. It's for them, for those who want to attack trans folk and trans issues and on religious freedom, these are issues they're putting a lot of effort, a lot of time, a lot of money into. There are so many other issues in Australia that need government attention. Why? Is it just, what are they afraid of? Are they afraid of equality? Are they afraid of living up to the Australian dream? Are they afraid of people engaging with their communities? What are they afraid of?
If we could really get to the heart of what this fear was about, this absolute moral panic, because that's what it is. It's a moral panic. If we could get to the heart of what this fear was about, we could hopefully confront it.
In 2004, the coalition government, supported by the Labor Party, voted in Parliament to make sure that same-sex marriage would never happen in Australia. Marriages between people of the same sex could not be performed, and marriages performed overseas could not be recognised here. Presumably they imagined they were solving the issue once and for all. But if so, they'd forgotten who they were dealing with. People who'd been defying bad laws and working to change them for well over 30 years. This law, passed in 2004, far from putting an end to any possibility of same-sex marriage, made it more or less inevitable. This is because gay and lesbian activists, faced with the challenge, did what they always did, which was set out to organise to get what they wanted. But it wasn't just that. All over Australia, millions of people who'd never thought about this issue even for a minute suddenly found themselves confronted with the question, should people be allowed to get married? And mostly the answer was, well, why shouldn't my family, my friends, my workmates be allowed to get married if they want to? Bringing those thoughts to the fore and turning them into political pressure was the work of the movement. It took a long time, but it finally, as we know, got there. It got there because of a grassroots campaign that was really quite remarkable by Australian standards. It involved tens of thousands of people, but it was a campaign that went beyond the cities and into places that were not normally part of such campaigning at all. Crow's Nest, Bunbury, Shepparton, Goulburn, British consulates, Argentina all turned up in the history of the movement. In the end, people got to vote, and 7.8 million people, 60% of those who voted yes to same-sex marriage. It was a remarkable moment. Here at the State Library, we gathered on the day that the announcement was to be made to hear the results over a loudspeaker system. Thousands and thousands of people gathered in the forecourt. We waited nervously, we heard the announcement, and the crowd erupted into cheers and tears of excitement. It was a remarkable moment in Australian history, marked at a place where we were used to protesting and demonstrating, but here we could gather at last to celebrate.
For the national result, yes responses, representing 61.6% of clear responses, were yes.
Wasn't it great to look back on, in a nostalgic way, on the campaign and everything that took place?
It was a great piece of legislation for Australians, but still very sad that the people of Singapore are still trying to fight for the right to decriminalise same-sex relationships at all. So lots more work still to be done. But that's it from us, another episode of QTV. We look forward to seeing you next time. Good night.
Good night.